Hey guys, Mudslinger Tool back at you. Today we're working on a 2016 Buick Enclave. Gonna do a brake job. So most brake jobs, a lot of people spend a lot of money on brake jobs. It's something that if you got a couple basic tools, you can do yourself, save a ton of money. So what we got here, here's your rotor, your caliper. Most cars nowadays are set up about the same. On the outside of, I already loosened these, but on the outside you got a couple bolts like this. Somebody brought me this truck here. It's kind of grinding, sound like metal on metal, and what I'm assuming is we threw a shoe, so it's just the back of the brake pad grinding on the caliper, on the rotor here. That's usually what you're into when you feel or hear the grinding when you're hitting the brake. But so in order to take this off, right here, this is your caliper mounting bracket. So this part stays on. This is your actual caliper. This is what we're wanting to take off. So in order to take that off, you got two bolts. You got one here, and you got one down here. These two bolts, like I said, I already broke them loose. But you take these bolts off. If they were on this particular truck, 2016 Enclave, you're gonna have to half-inch ratchet is what you would use on these to get them off. We're gonna take that off. Now your caliper, if it's not wanting to come off real easy, what you'd do is you'd wedge a hammer in here and pull it back this way. It's important that you don't just pull it off and let it fall, because you got your brake line here. You don't want to snap that brake line. But we're going to take that off nice and gently, and then set it real nice up on top of the rotor, so that you're not pinching this brake line. Once you got that off, you take a hammer or a big screwdriver. You want to pry them off, your brake pads off from the tops. You got to come out at an angle, so you go out at an angle like this and pull them off. So we see our culprit here. So like I said, my thoughts were right. There's no brake pad on that. Here's the other side. It's got a brake pad. Don't have much of a brake pad, but it's got a brake pad. The other one's grinding because it's metal on metal. So we're gonna get the new pads, and we'll go over to the. So what we gotta do is, you got the pistons that are on the caliper. They push themselves all the way out because the brake pad material is missing. So we got to push them back up. In order to do that, what you need, a big C-clamp. Don't have to be this big, but something that you can get around your caliper. You take an old brake pad, you put it in there, and you start pressing the pistons back in. Because your new brake pads are going to have a lot of meat on them, which your old ones did not. So you need all of this room. Now during this, you keep your brake fluid reservoir closed. You keep the cap on it. As I'm pressing this is going to be pushing brake fluid back up into that reservoir. You see this one's flush, this is how we want them. That one's still out a little bit. If you don't do this, you won't be able to get your new pads on. Alright, now we got those pressed all the way back in. Now it's time to put the new pads on. So we got our new brake pads. You're gonna notice on one of them you got a clip. That's your noise clip. This is what tells you this starts scrubbing on the rotor when your brakes are worn down, starts making that squealing sound. This is always on the inside. So this would be in a package. You got 2 of each. These would be on the inside. So you grab one of each of them. You're gonna mount them. You fit it in the bottom first. And then into the top. So same thing down here. Fit it into the bottom. Then into the top. This is all I got brakes for this. I don't know if you guys have an AutoZone or whatever hardware store, auto parts store you got, but I got the front and the back brakes, both sides. I believe it was under 70 bucks. This is why, if you can do it yourself, if you have the capability of doing it yourself, you got a garage, somewhere to jack a car up, save you money. You take it somewhere, have both brakes done, you're looking at probably 600 bucks versus 70 bucks. So we got the brakes. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some disc brake quiet on them. My bad. Alright, so you need some disc brake quiet. You're gonna put a little bit of it on the bottoms before you put them in. Right here on the bottom part of the pad. Just use the package and spread it around. It's nothing that's detrimental to anything. You put it on both ears here. You don't want to go on the inside, just on the outsides. Then you're gonna lock them into these little cradles here. So we'll do this one. All this does is this dampens the noise if your brakes are vibrating. Keeps your brand new brake job from making a lot of noise. Alright, so we got them in. Now what we're gonna do, you gotta make sure, like, you can't just flip this back around. See how the hose is spinning? So you want the hose how it's supposed to be. So, and since we have it all pressed back in, now you also have to press these top bolts back in. These were out here like this. You're gonna press these back in on both sides. The caliper will drop right in like that. We're gonna take our bolts, line them up, thread that one in, thread this one back in, take our 1/2-inch ratchet, tighten both of these bolts back up. Good rule of thumb, all this is cast, so you don't want to mess anything up. So a good rule of thumb, you get it pretty tight, give your ratchet a couple whacks with a hammer, after you put some meat on it, I mean, if you're a big gorilla, and you put some meat on it, the important part is you don't want to strip them out. So you put them on there, put them on pretty tight, give them a couple extra whacks with a hammer. You don't want to go an extra round after they're tight. You just want to go an extra little bit just to make sure they're tight and they don't fall off. Now, one of the good parts about this is a lot of people think after a brake job you need to bleed your brakes. If you're doing it like this, nobody has touched the brake pedal to suck air back in. You push that piston in so it's pushing brake fluid back up into the reservoir. As long as nobody has touched the brakes, you will not have to bleed these brakes. You just put your caliper back on and that resets it. Basically, we're doing the same thing for every side. All right, now that we've pressed both of them calipers back, the pistons back in. Now you see our fluid, brake fluid is way over. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get inside. We're gonna press the brake pedal until we have brakes again. The brakes until right now it'll go all the way down to the floor. We'll keep pumping them. So what we're doing is we're getting them pistons to go back out. We're getting the calipers to self-adjust. It's super important that you do this step. If you do not do this, if you just get in this car and you start to back it out of your driveway, you are not going to have brakes until you have pumped them and got the pistons readjusted and the calipers readjusted. Because you have to pump it about a good 20 times before you got good brakes. So if you get in a car before you do this, you're gonna be pumping that thing on the way down the driveway and ain't gonna be stopping at all. You're gonna run into something. So do not move the car after you've done that until you have adjusted these brakes with the brake pedal. During this process, you have to have the cap on your brake fluid reservoir. So now we're back to a solid pedal. Now we're going to move the car. All right, so now we're doing the backs. Same thing. When we got the back caliper on here, you got your two bolts on one on the top, one on the bottom. The only difference in this situation is these are going to be 14 millimeter bolts, so you need a 14 millimeter socket. And so we pull this off, lay it on top of the rotor again, so it don't fall. Then on the pads, you actually have the little brake noise maker on each pad, so on the inside and on the outside. So it doesn't matter. On these, you're gonna put them back on. Same thing. Compress the pistons. Put the brake quiet on the little ears of the brake pads. Put them back in. Compress the piston. Put it on. Tighten it up. Then we're gonna have to go through the same exact thing again. You get inside of the truck. Pump the brakes until you have brakes. Then we'll be done with a brake job. At the end of that, done with your brake job. Pretty simple, couple hour process, save you $500 even after you pay for the brakes. So remember, like, smash the subscribe button. As I figure it out, I show you how to figure it out, make more videos, keep coming back.